It started like most regrets do. Quiet, subtle, and easily dismissed. That line's been rattling around in my head for months now, like the echo of a door I should have locked, but left wide open out of habit, out of trust, out of love. I didn't see it coming. Or maybe I did. Maybe all those small red flags fluttering in the background of our everyday life were more like warning flares I chose to ignore. I'd been married to Lisa for 18 years, built a life just outside of Nashville where the air smells like barbecue and rain, and where everyone knows your name well enough to smile, but not enough to see the cracks forming behind it. I ran a small but successful contracting business, the kind where your hands get calloused and your back stays sore, but there's pride in every nail driven and every porch built. Lisa, she stayed home, supposedly, managing the house, though more often than not, managing meant drinking wine on the back patio with her friends, planning book clubs that didn't include books, and running off on errands that never seemed to end with receipts. I should have known something was wrong when she started guarding her phone, like it was a lifeline to a world I didn't belong to. Used to be, she'd leave it everywhere, on the counter, in the bathroom, even under a pile of laundry. But then suddenly, it was always face down, always locked, and always with her. And her voice, that soft, sarcastic drawl I used to find endearing, it started carrying this edge. Like every word I said grated on her nerves. Like breathing around her was an inconvenience. She stopped laughing at my jokes, the ones that used to make her snort wine through her nose. Stopped kissing me goodnight, stopped sitting close on the couch, stopped being anything more than a cold shoulder under the same roof. At first, I chalked it up to stress. 18 years is a long time, long enough for routine to start wearing thin, long enough for silence to feel more comfortable than conversation. But what I didn't know then was that I wasn't dealing with a lull in our marriage. I was watching the prelude to its execution. I remember the night everything broke. Not like glass, not with a shatter or a scream, but with a silence so deep it felt like the world paused to watch me break. It was a Friday evening, one of those warm southern nights where the breeze carries the scent of grilled meat and magnolias, and I just finished up a kitchen remodel out in Mount Juliet. I was tired, sawdust in my beard, jeans stained with sweat and paint, and I figured, foolishly, I'd surprise Lisa at her so-called book club. I stopped by the wine bar she always said they met at, thinking maybe I'd join in, maybe be the fun husband for once, show her I was still paying attention. The place was dim, cozy, with those twinkly lights strung up like some fairy tale. And there, in the very back booth, half shadowed by a curtain and a flickering candle, was my wife. Laughing. Not just laughing, giggling, twisting her hair like a teenager, her leg draped over a man I didn't recognize, his hand on her thigh like it belonged there. She was practically draped across him like a damn prom date, her lips brushing his ear as she whispered, God knows what. And then she saw me. She saw me. Her eyes flicked up, widened for half a second, not in guilt, not in shame, but in annoyance. And then, as if she were the one walking in on me, she smirked. Smirked. That smirk, I'll never forget it. It wasn't surprise or panic or remorse. It was satisfaction, like she wanted me to see, like she'd been waiting for that moment, rehearsing it in her head just to watch what I'd do. And the strangest part? My heart didn't shatter. It didn't crack like in the movies. It froze, like someone poured concrete in my veins. Like the love I'd carried for her for nearly 2 decades turned into something solid and cold and unforgiving in the span of a single heartbeat. I didn't confront her. Not there, not then. I turned around, walked out into the night air that suddenly felt too thin, got in my truck and just sat there with the engine running, my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles went white. My reflection in the rearview didn't look like me. It looked like some ghost of a man, hollowed out, burned at the edges. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel. And that, more than anything, scared the hell out of me. Because that's the moment something inside me shifted, deep and permanent. That's when I stopped being a husband trying to fix things and started being a man calculating the cost of war. Because make no mistake, what she started wasn't a betrayal. It was a declaration. She drew first blood with that smirk, And I decided right then and there, if she wanted war, I'd bring the fire. But not with fists, not with begging or pleading or chasing her down like a whipped dog. Number. I'd be smart, I'd be patient. I'd burn everything she thought she owned down to the foundations, legally, financially, and emotionally. And I'd do it with a smile on my face. Because this time, I wasn't fighting to keep her. I was fighting to remember who I was before I let her tear me down. And Lord help her, she had no idea who she was up against. Lisa didn't even try to lie. I came home that night not sure what kind of performance she'd give me. Crocodile tears, gaslighting, deflection. But I didn't get any of that. She was sitting on the edge of our bed, the same bed we'd shared for 18 years, legs crossed like she was posing for a perfume ad, swirling a glass of wine with one hand and scrolling her phone with the other like nothing had happened. No tension, no guilt. Just indifference so sharp it could have slit my throat. She didn't flinch when I walked into the room. Didn't put the phone down. Didn't ask how I was. She just kept scrolling like she was waiting for a commercial break before even acknowledging me. I stood there in the doorway, staring at her, heart still tight with what I'd seen an hour earlier. Her body pressed up against some stranger in that bar, her eyes lighting up with a kind of joy I hadn't seen in years. Maybe never. I didn't say anything at first. I was waiting to see if she'd try. If she'd even bother pretending to care. She didn't. Not even close. Finally, I spoke. I said her name. Quiet. Low. The way you speak to someone you don't recognize anymore. She didn't even look up. Just sipped her wine and said, "If this is about earlier, don't. Just don't." That's when I knew. I stepped inside the room, shut the door behind me, leaned against it because the floor under my feet suddenly felt like sand, like everything that had held me steady had collapsed. I asked her one question. "How long?" She sighed. Not a guilty sigh. An annoyed one. The kind you give when someone won't shut up during a movie. She set her phone down and finally met my eyes. And I swear, there was not a single ounce of regret in her face. Not even a flicker. She was calm, poised, arrogant. "Couple months," she said, like she was telling me about a new gym class she'd joined. "His name's Dylan. He's a personal trainer at the club. You'd like him. Real motivated, good with his hands." I didn't blink. Didn't move. I think if I had, I might have lunged. Not at her. I don't hit women. But the air between us felt thick enough to punch. "What, no tears?" I asked, my voice flat, hollow, already detached. She laughed. Laughed. Like this was some joke I didn't get. "Please," she said, standing up, walking past me like I was the help. "You weren't exciting anymore. The spark's been gone for years, Jacob. I just finally did something about it." I stared at the space she'd left behind, the ghost of her words still ringing in the air. "You weren't exciting anymore. Like I was a fridge with a broken ice maker. Like I'd served my purpose and now I was just taking up space. That wasn't just betrayal, that was contempt. Pure, deliberate, and cruel." She went into the bathroom and left the door open like nothing was sacred anymore. Her voice echoed from the sink, casual as hell. "I've been thinking about moving out," she said, brushing her teeth like we were roommates talking about rent. "But I want to make sure I get my share of the house. We'll need to figure that out." That's when something snapped. Not like a branch cracking. More like a vault door slamming shut. She thought she was clever. Thought I'd just nod along, get a lawyer, and split things 50-50 while she played house with some gym rat half my age and none of my brains. She really thought she was going to move out with a check in her hand and a tan from all the sunlight she'd been soaking up on her little errands. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that the moment she smirked at me in that bar, she didn't just break our marriage. She woke something in me, something old and cold and calculating. So I smiled, just a little, enough to confuse her. "That makes sense," I said, like I was already halfway to signing over the deed. She blinked, not used to me agreeing so quickly. "Really?" "Yeah," I said, stepping closer, looking her dead in the eye. "You deserve a fresh start, a new chapter, all of that." And just like that, she relaxed. I could see it in her shoulders. She thought she'd won. But while she was sipping her wine and picking out throw pillows for Dylan's bachelor pad, I was already drawing up blueprints. Not for a house, for a war plan. I wasn't going to scream or threaten. I wasn't going to chase her around the neighborhood with drama. I was going to dig. Find every secret, every lie, every receipt. And when the time came, I was going to make damn sure she walked away with nothing but regret clinging to her, like perfume she couldn't scrub off. Because this wasn't just about heartbreak. This wasn't even about revenge. This was about taking back everything she tried to strip from me. My pride, my dignity, my peace. She thought she was dealing with the same tired man she'd been ignoring for years. She was wrong. She didn't know me at all. Over the next month, I gave Lisa exactly what she wanted. Or rather, what she thought she wanted. And I did it with such quiet precision that even the snake in her gut that had probably kept her alive this long didn't sense the danger coiling around her. I became a man of soft nods and quiet yeses. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I didn't raise my voice. And that's exactly why she let her guard down. She believed she had crushed me. She thought the confrontation was over, that I was licking my wounds, maybe crying in my truck to country songs about love gone wrong. And in a way, I wanted her to think that. Wanted her to see me as nothing more than the leftover man she thought I was. What she didn't realize is that while she was spending more nights with friends, sipping cocktails and playing grown-up with Dylan the dumbbell polisher, I was quietly repositioning every piece of our life, one calculated move at a time. I gave her space. I didn't ask questions. I played the role. Hell, I even brought her coffee a few mornings just to keep the mask tight on my face. "You okay?" I'd ask softly as I handed it to her, and she'd nod, all smug and glowing like she'd just discovered life beyond the chains of marriage. But beneath my calm exterior, I was mapping the battlefield. I was watching, listening, remembering. And when the time felt right, I made a call. A buddy of mine, let's call him John, though that's not his real name, owed me a favor. Years ago, I fixed up his cabin for a third of what I should have charged because his brother had just passed and I knew what grief did to a man. John, as it turned out, knew someone who didn't advertise online. A private investigator, the kind of man who didn't wear a badge anymore but still knew how to make people talk. I gave him everything I had. Lisa's routine, her car make and plate, the gym she swore she never had time for. He didn't ask questions, just got to work. 2 weeks later, he handed me a manila envelope so thick it should have come with a trigger warning. I didn't open it in my truck. I waited until I got home, sat down at the kitchen table where Lisa used to laugh with our son over spilled cereal and crayon drawings, and flipped it open like a man opening a coffin. What I found inside didn't shock me, not really, but it scorched something deep down that I thought had already turned to ash. Hotel receipts, dozens of them, all in town, sometimes during the day, sometimes overnight. And in those grainy, time-stamped photos, her and Dylan, arms wrapped around each other like horny teenagers. Parking lot kisses, elevator embraces. Him with his stupid muscle shirt tucked into his jeans like he was posing for a rejected reality show. Her looking up at him like he hung the damn moon. But what burned the most were the screenshots. Texts, pages of them. Conversations between Lisa and Dylan that peeled back every layer of my marriage like old wallpaper hiding mold beneath. Lisa. I swear, if I hear him talk about tile grout one more time, I'll drown myself in the bathtub. Dylan. Lowell, he's like your old handyman. Plan B till the money comes in. Lisa. Exactly. Almost there. Once I get my half of the house, we're gone. Dylan. You're a savage. I love it. She called me Plan B. She called our marriage a layaway plan. I stared at the printouts until my eyes blurred, every line of ink carving deeper into the pit of my stomach. But I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I just kept printing, kept saving. Every receipt, every message, every piece of dirt they handed me, I filed it. Because this wasn't just about pain anymore. It was about precision. I took the next week to clean house. Quietly, smoothly. I opened a new bank account in just my name and started funneling every dollar I could into it. Closed the joint credit card, canceled the shared streaming services, even the one she used most. She didn't even notice. Or maybe she did and didn't care. Maybe she thought I was finally fading into the background like a broken fixture in the corner of the garage. I sold off an old boat I never used and put the money straight into the new account. Called the lawyer who helped me draft the prenup 15 years ago and scheduled a meeting. Lisa had laughed at that prenup back then, said it was paranoid and cold. I said it was smart. I guess we both ended up being right. I started moving my name off things she might think she owned. Canceled the joint auto insurance, put the house utilities in my name only. I even got a new phone and left the old one where she could still text me meaningless crap while I handled business on the real line. I wasn't just preparing for a divorce. I was gutting the battlefield before she even picked up her sword. And through it all, I kept smiling, kept playing the role, kept being the man she thought was too broken to fight back. The best part? She started getting sloppy, started thinking she didn't have to hide anymore. She'd leave perfume-slicked clothes out in the laundry room, Dylan's cologne on a hoodie she swore was just something from the gym, and the more careless she got, the more certain I became that she deserved exactly what was coming. Because this wasn't just cheating. This was targeted, deliberate demolition of a life we built together. This was erasing me from my own story, as if I hadn't poured everything I had into keeping our home steady, our bills paid, our life peaceful. But peace was over. And the storm? It was coming. Because you can only gut a man once before he starts stitching himself back together with wire and spite. And Lisa didn't just gut me. She smiled while she did it. So I smiled back. By the time Lisa finally got around to telling me she was ready to separate, I had already vanished from the life she thought she'd left behind. Not physically, not yet, but in every way that mattered. Emotionally, legally, financially, spiritually, I was already gone. I had done the work, pulled the levers behind the curtain while she danced under the spotlight of her own self-delusion. She thought she was walking into a battlefield where she held all the cards, where the man she'd spent the last year degrading, mocking, and quietly erasing would just nod, sign the papers, and let her walk away with her arms full of stolen treasures. But when she came into the kitchen that morning, with her hair freshly curled and her voice artificially sweet, and said, "Jacob, I think we need to talk about moving forward," she didn't see the trapdoor waiting beneath her feet. She had no idea that every step she took that day would lead her straight to the edge of a cliff I'd already mapped, measured, and prepared. I didn't fight her. I didn't even blink. I nodded, kept stirring my coffee, and told her we could sit down that evening and go over things calmly. She seemed surprised, maybe even a little disappointed. She probably imagined some dramatic argument where I'd beg her to stay, cry about the memories, accuse her of betrayal, and give her a reason to play the victim. But I gave her nothing. Just a calm smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes, and an, "Okay, let's talk tonight." That night, she came home later than usual, hair windblown, makeup a little too perfect, perfume so thick it hit the door before she did. She thought she was coming home to control the narrative. She walked into the living room holding a notepad and a pen, like she was about to teach a seminar on fair separation. I handed her a plain envelope. Simple, white, unmarked. But it weighed more than anything she'd ever held. She raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" "Open it," I said, standing just behind the couch, arms folded. She slid her manicured nail under the flap and pulled out the papers. Her expression shifted almost instantly, from confident to confused to stunned. Inside were the finalized divorce documents. Not draft copies, not suggestions, not notes. Finalized. Signed by me, notarized, dated, and thoroughly composed by a top-tier attorney she'd never even met. Her hands shook slightly as she flipped through them. And then, tucked between the pages, she found the photo. Not the blurry kind you might get from a gossip site. High-resolution, time-stamped, color-corrected proof of her and Dylan in the stairwell of a cheap hotel, wrapped around each other like newlyweds on a honeymoon. And beneath that, A detailed financial statement showing the house had been quietly refinanced, under my name, paid off in full with inheritance money I'd never told her about, because I knew better than to hand that kind of power to someone like her. "You refinanced the house?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Gone was the cocky tone. Gone was the smirk. What was left was something she wasn't used to feeling: powerlessness. I nodded slowly, like I was explaining the weather. 6 months ago, right around the time you were texting Dylan about how washed up I was. But my name was never on the deed, I cut in. You never bothered. Said it didn't matter back when we bought it. Remember? You laughed at the prenup too, said it was cold and unromantic. You signed it anyway. Good thing, huh? She went quiet then, flipping through the pages like maybe there was a clause she could exploit, some forgotten loophole she could sink her nails into. But there wasn't. I'd been thorough. Every page bled preparation. Then she found the documentation from the private investigator. All of it. Texts, photos, time logs. She scanned one message aloud without realizing. Almost there. Once I get my half of the house, we're gone. The silence that followed was so thick it could have drowned her. She sat down, suddenly smaller than she'd ever looked before. You planned this? She asked, and her voice had lost that dismissive edge. Now it was just quiet, tired, cornered. I stepped around the couch and met her eyes. Number you did. The moment you picked a boy over a man. She blinked. For a second, I thought she might cry. But no, there were no tears. Lisa didn't cry over mistakes. She just looked angry that she'd lost the upper hand. She stood, tossing the envelope on the coffee table like it burned her fingers. You think this makes you a hero? You think this is justice? I stepped forward until there was only a breath between us. Number, I think it makes me done. She stormed out, muttering something under her breath. The door slammed behind her, but it didn't shake me. I just stood there for a moment, breathing in the silence that she used to fill with contempt, and poured myself a drink. Whiskey, neat, smooth, final. And as I took that first sip, I realized something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Peace. Not joy, not triumph, not even satisfaction. Just quiet, unshakable peace. Because she thought she was ending our marriage on her terms. But I was the one who shut the door, and I wasn't done yet. The final part will be released tomorrow at 9 p.m. Don't miss it.